Nearly 120 years after his mother's death, Samuel's great-granddaughter, journalist Clara Pierce, discovered his unpublished memoirs. Shocked by the depth of the conspiracy, she launched an investigative documentary that finally gained nationwide attention. DNA tests, archived letters, and forgotten testimonies confirmed the scandal. Checkmark, the First Lady had a secret child. Checkmark, the president's advisor, ordered an assassination. Checkmark, 2 deaths were covered up. Checkmark, a false presidential royal lineage, was preserved for generations. The Whitford Dynasty, once seen as America's version of royalty, was exposed as a legacy built on betrayal, bloodshed, and silenced truth. Clara Pierce's documentary forced historians to revise an entire chapter of American history. And Samuel Pierce, the forbidden heir, finally reclaimed the place history had stolen from him. Samuel Pierce grew up never knowing his origins, yet he always felt pulled toward Washington, an instinct he couldn't explain. By adulthood, he became a historian specializing in presidential archives, unknowingly studying the legacy of his own family. His turning point came when a retired White House maid, on her deathbed, summoned him. She handed him a sealed envelope. "Your mother wanted you to have this." Inside were Evelyn's letters, proof of her affair, Lockridge's threats, and Samuel's real parentage. Samuel's entire identity shattered, then crystallized into purpose. He reopened archived files long forgotten, finding inconsistencies in Evelyn's death and Pierce's so-called accident. His research threatened to expose a century-old political crime designed to protect a false American royal bloodline. When Samuel went public in 1934, Congress launched a discreet internal inquiry, but many members feared destabilizing the country by revealing a murdered First Lady and an illegitimate heir. Once again, the Whitford Dynasty was protected. But this time, the truth leaked through journalists, historians, and whispered stories that spread quietly for decades. The myth was collapsing. Lockridge transported the infant to a secret orphanage in Maryland, altering every document that connected Samuel Pierce to the White House. Evelyn was forced to return publicly as the grieving First Lady recovering from a miscarriage, an orchestrated lie that newspapers repeated without question. President Whitford, unaware of everything, praised Lockridge for protecting the family's image, further empowering the man who had engineered murder. But Evelyn was no longer the same woman. Grief sharpened her into a quiet revolutionary. For years, she gathered evidence, hidden letters, Lockridge's forged documents, and eyewitness statements from staff who had seen far too much but were too afraid to speak. She planned to reveal everything once Whitford's presidency ended. But Lockridge acted first. He arranged a private meeting with the president, presenting fabricated reports suggesting Evelyn was plotting to disgrace him. Fueled by paranoia and his obsession with a perfect legacy, President Whitford distanced himself from his wife, allowing Lockridge to isolate her completely. 3 months later, Evelyn was found dead in her private chamber. Official cause: heart failure. Unofficial truth: a silent elimination. Yet Lockridge underestimated one thing. Evelyn had hidden copies of her evidence in locations across 3 states. And decades later, one of those documents would resurface, thanks to Samuel Pierce himself, now an adult unaware of his royal bloodline. Evelyn's world shifted the moment her physician hesitated before delivering the news. She was pregnant, but she already knew. This child was not the president's. Fear and desire clashed inside her chest. Captain Pierce swore he would protect her, even flee the country if necessary, but Evelyn refused. She believed she could hide the truth. After all, she had successfully concealed their affair for almost a year. But Henry Lockridge was not fooled. He summoned Evelyn under the guise of medical concern, presenting falsified reports suggesting the pregnancy occurred before the president's last publicly known intimate visit to the First Lady. Lockridge's message was clear: "I know whose child this is." And then came the threat disguised as courtesy. For the stability of this nation, the president must never learn the truth. Lockridge arranged a secret birth outside Washington, planning to replace the newborn with a child from a political ally's family, an act of cold-blooded manipulation designed to protect the Whitford legacy. But fate intervened. During a stormy winter night, Evelyn went into early labor at the isolated estate where she had been hidden. The child, a boy, arrived fragile but alive. Evelyn named him Samuel Pierce, refusing to hide the truth even if the world never learned his name. Captain Pierce, who had rushed through the night to reach her, held their son with awe and trembling pride. But Lockridge had followed him. A struggle broke out in the candlelit halls of the estate. Voices echoed. Evelyn screamed. A gunshot cracked through the darkness. By dawn, Captain Pierce was dead. The official report labeled it a tragic accident. But Evelyn knew the truth. He had been assassinated. And her son, the president's illegitimate heir, was now a threat to a dynasty built entirely on lies. In the late 1800s, America stood dazzled by the immaculate public image of President Charles Whitford, a man celebrated for his impeccable diplomacy and regal composure. Newspapers often referred to him as the American monarch, a symbolic king ruling a rapidly rising empire. But beneath the polished surface of the Whitford presidency lived a secret capable of reshaping American political history forever. Inside the marble halls of the White House, First Lady Evelyn Whitford lived a life suffocating under ceremonial expectations. Their marriage, admired by millions, had long been a performance, two political actors sharing a quiet, cold distance. President Whitford was obsessed with legacy, lineage, and the idea of passing power through an unbroken, quote, American royal line. Evelyn, however, found herself trapped, emotionally starved, and watched constantly by the political machine built around her husband. During a diplomatic reception in 1891, Evelyn met Captain Nathaniel Pierce, a decorated naval officer assigned to protect the First Lady during a European diplomatic tour. Pierce was charismatic, idealistic, and dangerously genuine in a world where authenticity was a threat. Their connection was instant, subtle glances, lingering conversations, and attention the White House staff quickly noticed, but feared to whisper aloud. Over the next months, Evelyn and Pierce exchanged letters hidden within bouquets delivered to the residence. Each message became bolder, revealing emotional and eventually romantic confessions. It was a love story unfolding in the shadows of America's most watched building. But with love came danger. President Whitford's chief advisor, Henry Lockridge, a ruthless strategist who saw everything, began noticing inconsistencies. Evelyn's sudden joy, Pierce's presence near restricted areas, and the unusual frequency of her private outings. Lockridge, loyal only to power, started quietly documenting every suspicious movement. Because he knew something the public didn't. The Whitford lineage could not survive another scandal. And this time, the secret would involve far more than betrayal. It would involve an unborn child whose existence could shatter the illusion of America's royal-like presidency.